Okay, let's keep reading Spaceman Bill. We're up to chapter 4. Yang was given a penthouse suite in best hotel in the city. He was fitted out in fashionable clothes that made him look more handsome still. He was invited to open shopping malls, to speak at expensive dinners, to meet the Prime Minister, to judge all sorts of talent quests, and to sing the national anthem at footy matches. He was even given a ticker tape parade through the streets of Sydney and Melbourne, where people turned up in millions to see him drive past. The other cities were really angry about being left out. But most of all, he was interviewed on TV. "What's the future like, Bill?" he was asked over and over again. "Oh, it's not at all like this," said Bill, continuing with the big lie, part 3. "For one thing, the houses are entirely different." "Different how?" Yang thought longingly of his far-off planet. "The houses of the future aren't fixed to the ground," he had Bill say. "They float and move around. You can make them go wherever you want, so you don't need trains and cars and stuff. You just head off in the comfort of your own lounge room." In millions of present-day lounge rooms, viewers were saying, "Hey, I'd like one of those floating homes." A couple of families tied huge gas-filled balloons to their existing houses, but they just tore the roofs off. Back at the TV stations, the interviewers pressed on with their questions. "What else, Bill? What else is different in 2505? Yang sighed as he again remembered Yola, his lost love. "There isn't one moon in the sky," he had Bill say now. "There are lots, and they've been turned into wonderful gardens, what you would call parks. They glow like jewels when they rise each evening." "Gee, Bill, and you exchanged all that for this?" "I had no choice," Bill told them. "I had no choice. My country needed me." Up shot the TV ratings, the same as before. "He's the noblest man who's ever lived," women sighed. "He's the Don Bradman of space exploration," men said enviously. "He's the coolest of all cool guys," kids added, and replaced their old posters with giant-sized pictures of Spaceman Bill. "Tell us about outer space then, Bill," the interviewers continued. They just couldn't get enough of his wonderful answers. Since Bill's arrival, they'd taken to calling their stations info channels. "Outer space," said Bill, switching back to the big lie, part 2. "Well, I have to admit, it's a dangerous place. There are time trails everywhere. The instant you cross one, you're dragged off to another age. For instance, I tried landing once, and all I could see were dinosaurs. I was millions of years in the past. On another occasion, I found myself millions of years in the future. The Earth had become a ball of bare clay with nothing on it, no sign of life at all. Chancing upon the time trail that brought me here was a piece of good luck." "Lucky for us, you mean," the interviewers said admiringly. On one of the shows, however, Yang was questioned by an army general, and he didn't seem nearly so taken with Bill. "What about alien life forms?" he asked. "There must be lots of them out there." "There probably are," said Bill, being honest again, "but their chances of finding their way down here to this very time and place are pretty slim. About 1 in a zillion, I'd say, mainly because we're protected by the time trails." "Talking of time trails," said the general in a suspicious voice, "there's something I don't understand. If you manage to travel down on some trail or other, why isn't your ship still here? What's happened to it?" "Time trails are very tricky things," Bill explained. "They can change in a blink of an eye. The trail I was on snatched the ship back up. If I'd stayed on board a minute longer, I'd have gone with it." The general, who longed to get his hands on Bill's ship, gave an unpleasant laugh. "Yes, very convenient, I'm sure," he said. "Now try pulling the other leg. It's got bells on." "Boo! Hiss!" cried the viewing public, so loud that the Prime Minister announced a cut to the military budget the very next morning. But by then Yang was growing tired of all the talk, impatient too with the long delay. He had an important job to do here on Earth, and he wanted to get on with it. I'm worn out, he had Bill tell the TV stations when they rang to arrange the day's program. I need to get away from the city for a while. Just one more interview, Bill, they begged, on any show you care to choose. All right, said Bill, I'll do one more, a children's show. It was arranged. A whole bunch of kids from various parts of Australia was brought in to ask him questions. Mostly they asked the same old questions as before, but one kid, Jasmine, an Aboriginal girl of about 10, asked something entirely new. You must be the best travelled person. You must be the best travelled person in the world, she said when it came to her turn. You've been nearly everywhere. So what's your favourite place? Your very, very, very favourite. Yang didn't hesitate. Home, he said. Bill put it a bit differently, pointing towards the wide-open spaces of Australia. He said, out there, it's where I should be right now. Tell you what, said Jasmine, my grand's mob live out there. How about coming to stay with us? Yang really liked this kid, well, as much as he could like any of these horribly ugly humans, and what she'd just said interested him, so he flashed her his most charming smile. Swoonsville, sighed the other girls on the panel. Greaseball, growled the boys. That's extremely kind of you, Jasmine, he said in his huskiest movie star voice. I'm most grateful for the offer. If I get the chance, I'd love to pay a visit to your grand's, did you call them a mob? Jasmine didn't get a chance to answer because at that moment something terrible happened. The worst thing imaginable. Something that not even the chief could have foreseen. Chapter 5. What Yang and the chief hadn't checked on was the sun. Not Xing's pale silver suns, but Earth's bright yellow one. If they had run a check on it, they would have realised it was going through an unsettled period. That really happens from time to time. The fires on the sun flare up, sending tongues of flame shooting thousands of miles into space. Sunspots, the scientists called them. You can't see them with the naked eye, but when they happen, they can interfere with electrical energy on Earth. Well, the very same day that Yang visited the kids' TV show, there was a massive burst of sunspot activity. I'd love to pay a visit to your grand's, did you call them a mob? Bill was saying, and at that moment, all over Australia, the power faltered, including the power pack inside the hologram generator. As the studio lights dipped, a 3D image of Bill flickered on and off. For an instant, Bill vanished, and in his place there was a monster. Then Bill reappeared, to be replaced by the monster, then by Bill again. There, look, there's it's happening. The viewing public only caught glimpses of Yang, but that was enough. His drooling mouths, his spider-like eyes, his giant ears, his rock-crushing teeth, and his long waving tentacles, these caused panic throughout the land. Mums dropped their babies in fright. Dads spilled their beer as they ducked for cover. Kids lost the plot altogether. For the first and only time in their lives, they grabbed the remote and turned the TV off. TV ratings plummeted to their lowest levels ever. What was that thing? People asked in worried voices. Nervously, a few people switched their tellies back on. Bill was still there, as handsome, as charming as ever. Most of the time anyway. The trouble was, the screens hadn't stopped flickering, and at every flicker, ugly red tentacles seemed to coil around Bill's head. This isn't Spaceman Bill, screamed the kids in the studio. It can't be. It's an alien. Stay calm, my friends, Bill called Bill in his most commanding voice. I'm your spaceman friend, your dear old buddy from 2505. You have nothing to fear from me. Luckily, his translation device was still working. He had no sooner spoken than the hologram generator lost power completely. Now Yang was clearly visible, his spider-like eyes gleaming in the studio lights. Nothing to fear, he repeated. Except this time the words seemed to come straight from Yang's 3 drooling mouths. Yeah, right, said the kids, and made a rush for the exit. The presenter wasn't far behind, nor was the rest of the on-set crew. Soon the only person left in the studio apart from Yang was the girl called Jasmine. She also tried to make a run for it, but Yang wound his tentacles through her hair and hung on. Please don't eat me, she pleaded. eyeing the 3 alien mouths and rock-crushing teeth and the purple tongues. "Eat you," said Yang. "What a revolting idea." Tucking her under a tentacle to stop her escaping, he crept off in search of the exit. Jasmine screamed and struggled all the way up the 3 flights of stairs to the top, but Yang hardly noticed. He was far too busy thinking of a single Zontoan word, saying it over and over in his mind. Xylzan, 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 Xylzan. What that means. In English, that means come, come, come. They climbed the last flight of stairs and stepped out onto the roof. Xylzan, Yang repeated for the last time, and with a flash of silver, his spaceship sped down from the skies. "Oh no," said Jasmine in a terrified whisper. "You're going to kidnap me, aren't you? To take me back to your alien planet." "Back to Xing?" Yang said in amazement. "Why would I do that? You'd scare my people half to death." "They'll scare me to death, more like," Jasmine sobbed. "I bet you're planning to put me on display in a museum or something. Or to probe my mind or do experiments and stuff." "Probe your mind," said Yang in disgust. "Carry out experiments? You're really full of revolting ideas. Do you know that? I can't imagine where you get them from." Jasmine smeared away her tears. "Where are you taking me then?" Yang bundled her towards the ship's open hatch. "That mob of your grands," he said as they sped off. "Tell me about them." Chapter 6. That night on TV, there was a special news bulletin. "Australia has been invaded by aliens," announced the newsreader in a sombre voice. "The individual known as Spaceman Bill has turned out to be an alien in disguise. This is what he really looks like." A picture of Yang flashed up on the screen, complete with gleaming eyes and drooling mouths. In his tentacles, he held a struggling child. "Eek!" screamed a million viewing mums and dropped their babies for the second time that day. "Crikey," gasped a million dads and spilled their beer again. Several million kids just sat and goggled, too scared to reach for the remote. For a while there, they forgot that things like remotes existed. "The hiding places of this hideous creature is presently unknown," the newsreader continued. "A huge reward is offered for his recapture. Anyone with knowledge of his whereabouts should contact the authorities immediately." Straight after the news flash, the Prime Minister addressed the nation. "My fellow Australians," he said gloomily, "I regret to inform you that we are at war with alien invaders who have kidnapped one of our dear children, Jasmine Watson. Even as we speak, our gallant forces are preparing to rescue her. Our fighter planes are being made ready, our naval vessels are leaving port, our troops are on full alert. Once the child is safe, we will hunt Spaceman Bill and his horrible kind from our wide brown land. We will drive them from our crystal shores and from our clear blue skies. We will not rest until we are rid of them completely." The Prime Minister tried to add a reassuring smile, but it looked more like a sickly grin, because the truth was this: no one had any idea where Spaceman Bill had gone. They weren't even sure if he was still on Earth. That was how things stayed for a week or so. At first, people went about looking scared. Mums guarded their babies every waking minute, as if they expected some Yang-like alien to drop from the clouds and grab them. Dads left their sheds and took to watching the skies. Kids hid in their cupboards and refused to come out. After a few days, however, things began to calm down. TVs clicked back on. Newspaper headlines sounded more hopeful. "Alien kidnaps child and flees," announced one headline. "Child's brave sacrifice saves nation," said another. And finally, "Australia survives invasion." With a sigh of relief, mums let their babies crawl around the house again. Dads took to sneaking off to their sheds like before. Kids anchored themselves in front of the TV and refused to budge. But then, when no one expected it, there was a sighting. Someone driving from Adelaide to Alice Springs claimed to have seen an alien ship. "It was right there beside the road," the driver said on the TV that night. "What about Spaceman Bill?" asked the interviewer. "Oh, he was there too," said the driver. "And that girl, the one he was supposed to have kidnapped, she was with him. They both grinned and gave me a wave as I drove by." The interviewer looked a bit doubtful. "The girl waved, not just Bill?" "Yeah, she looked pretty happy for someone who's been kidnapped." Bill was pointing and chatting away, and she was writing things down in a big notebook. Don't ask me what. Writing things in a big notebook. You're sure about this? Sure as I am sitting here. The interviewer gave a puzzled frown. So what do you think they were up to? Search me, said the driver. I wasn't going to stick around and find out, was I? I'm not that dumb. Dumb or not, he seemed to be telling the truth, because more sightings soon came pouring in, and all from the same area. Lone prospectors spied Bill's ship from rocky outcrops. Tourists on camel safaris glimpsed its sleek shape through the scrub. The flying doctor service spotted it from the skies, its metal panels gleaming in the sunlight. And at every sighting, Jasmine and Bill both grinned and waved to the passers-by. Jasmine sometimes flapped her notebook at them, then went on writing. Kidnapped child brainwashed by alien Bill, screamed one headline. Alien uses child as slave labour, shrieked another. Aliens target our children, howled a third. On TV, panels of experts demanded immediate government action. So did the schools, the churches, child welfare groups, parent-teacher associations, and even a group no one had heard of called Time to Bring Back the Cane. The Prime Minister, gloomier than ever, made a second TV appearance. My fellow Australians, he declared, I am the bearer of grim news. From all reports, the aliens have established themselves in Central Australia. Who knows what foul weapons they have set in place there. But rest assured, our brave soldiers have not abandoned you. On my instructions, they are seeking out the enemy at this very moment. Our plan is to rescue the poor brainwashed child called Jasmine, then to surround Bill and his horrid crew, and to drive them back into space where they belong. If successful, we will emerge from this conflict as a proud and free people. If not... The PM paused as two big tears rolled down his cheeks. He tried to go on, but the best he could do was sob and bury his face in his arms. Cut! Yelled the studio manager, and all the screens in Australia went blank. Throughout the land, people sat staring at their empty TV screens. Stunned expressions on their faces. It was bad enough turning the TV off. Having it suddenly go blank like this was the worst kind of nightmare. It was the breakdown of civilization as most people knew it. End of story, everyone groaned. It's all over, bar the shouting. We're finished, washed up, done for. Well, not everyone said things like that, maybe. Yang, for instance, he didn't. He didn't groan and carry on, nor did Jasmine and her gran, nor, come to think of that, did the mob, who were all really busy by then. Tell you what, said Gran with a chuckle, by the sound of that PM bloke, there's not a lot of time left. So how about we go through the lists again? Just to make sure we haven't missed anything, Jasmine agreed, opening her notebook. Yang checked that his hologram machine was switched on and then gave them his famous movie star smile. Spaceman Bill, at your service, he said.